Hello and welcome to The Big Conversation, Press TV's interactive call-in show that puts your opinions first. Tonight we have one main question. What does Iran's Islamic Revolution mean to you? Iran is marking the 38th anniversary of its Islamic Revolution, with celebrations being held across the country. The revolution symbolizes many things: the victory of Islam, the victory of the people against tyranny, anti-imperialism, anti-Zionism, independence, and self-determination. The revolution was born in a turbulent world, but despite the calculations of the capitalist and communist superpowers, a free, independent and sovereign state was born. But the big conversation is all about opinions, whether you agree with me or not, so please give me a call on +44 208 601 4555 to share your views. You can join the conversation on Twitter at @thebigconvo_PTV, and you can watch the show live on Press TV's Facebook page, and we'll read out the best comments and talking points that you leave on there. But before we start taking your calls, let's remind ourselves of the momentous events of 1979. The Iranian Revolution was one of the most momentous events of the 20th century. In 1979, a pro-Western secular dictator, Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi, was overthrown after a mass popular uprising. The Shah, who had close ties to the US and Israel, was hugely unpopular within Iran and was renowned for the severity of his repression. The opposition to the Shah was led by Grand Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, who accused the Shah of trying to destroy Islam within Iran. Despite being arrested and forced into exile, Imam Khomeini enjoyed huge support within Iran from ordinary people angered by corruption, the increasing gap between rich and poor, and the lack of political and religious freedoms. Demonstrations against the Shah developed into a campaign of civil resistance and strikes, which paralyzed the country. The Shah eventually left Iran for exile in January 1979, and Ayatollah Khomeini was invited back to Tehran to be greeted by several million people. In April 1979, Iran voted by national referendum to become an Islamic republic. The revolution sent shockwaves throughout the world, heralding a state which was Islamic, independent, sovereign, anti-Western and anti-Zionist. And 38 years later, it remains that way. As a non-Iranian Sunni Muslim myself, I have to say that I too was inspired by the Islamic Revolution, which gave hope to so many Muslims around the globe that they could establish a society based on their beliefs, as well as throw off the shackles of Western domination. And the revolution also gave similar hope to so many non-Muslims in places like Latin America who were suffering from similar Western oppression. It was the first time in contemporary history that a country had achieved genuine independence. Since day one of the revolution, Iran has survived years of sabotage, war and sanctions. In the 1980s, a war of aggression was launched by the Iraqi Ba'athi regime and its Arab and Western allies, but Iran fought back valiantly for 8 dreadful years. Then the hot war turned into an economic war. This culminated in imperialist America, goaded by Zionist Israel, censoring Iran in virtually all of its international monetary transactions. As well as these threats, the Islamic Republic is now having to counter the false, Saudi-led sectarian propaganda which seeks to demonize Iran as a Shia nation that is anti-Sunni. A quick glance at the Middle East reveals there is hardly a country that is free of turmoil. Most are also subservient to the imperialists and the Zionists. Iran, on the other hand, despite 3 decades of punishing Western sanctions, has used those sanctions as a challenge and an opportunity to develop a resistance economy. Perhaps no country in recent history has had to endure so much negative propaganda and unremitting hostility as the Islamic Republic. From internal sabotage through groups like the Mujahideen al-Khalq organization to outright military invasion and trade embargoes, Iran has taken on all comers, yet today it is the preeminent power in the region. It is a strong state with a strong military, political system and a self-sufficient economy. And unlike others, it is an independently powerful state and doesn't owe its power to outside support. Regionally, the attempt to take down the Iran-led resistance axis has failed. That's what Syria was all about, weakening Iran. The West, Saudi, Turkey and Qatar threw the kitchen sink at it and failed. Now Iran enjoys a strong political and military position in Iraq, Syria and Lebanon, and it also enjoys major influence in Afghanistan, Central Asia, Yemen and Palestine. So Iran has survived 4 decades of regional wars, sanctions, military threats and internal destabilization attempts. And it has not only survived but thrived, and now has more choices in a multipolar world. Now, I believe we have an expert caller online. Sayyid Mohammed Mousavi is the president of the World Islamic League. Sayyid Mousavi, are you there?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Very nice to hear from you again. Thank you very much for joining us today. Sayyid Mohammed, can I ask you, how were you inspired by the Islamic Revolution of 1979?
In fact, the Islamic Revolution, when it started, most of people could not believe that such revolution led by a scholar with no support from the superpowers or any country could really overthrow a regime like the Shah regime, which was supported by the superpowers, by America mainly and Israel. So it was a big hope. And then when it really overthrown the Shah regime, it was big victory for all those who have lost hope. And it gave them a sign that, yes, Islam is still alive. And Islam can make victory in today's world. That was itself a big achievement and a big service for the morale of hundreds of millions of Muslims. Being non-Iranian Muslim, I should say that Muslims over the world, in all the 5 continents, look at the Islamic Republic of Iran as the example for the resistance against the evil powers, as a supporter to the just cases of the people, all the people, without any discrimination of religion or faith or caste or language. Also, they look at Iran as an example for the ability to be independent and sovereign in a world where it is difficult for many regimes to stand alone.
Yes.
That's why you find today the Islamic Republic achieving victory after victory in many aspects. One of the very important aspects is the stand of Iran supporting the major case of Islam and Muslims, which is Palestine. Majority of the Arab regimes who supposed to be with the case or the matter of Palestine are secretly compromising with Israel, but Iran is the country which stood right from the beginning with Palestine. They have taken over the embassy of Israel and gave it to the Palestinians. And since then, with all the financial difficulties and the embargo against Iran, Iran has supported the Palestinian people with hundreds of millions of dollars and still supporting them. This itself is a very big achievement which gives the Muslims big hope that the case of Palestine will not die, as far as there are sincere people with Palestine and with the Palestinian people. Today, in many aspects, we find Iran ahead. In the scientific field, in the technological field, in the research, in the diplomacy, in the media, in the political standard, and the international level, we find the achievements of the Islamic Republic giving the Muslims all over the world a very big hope.
Okay. Sayyid Mohammed, that was a beautiful speech. I didn't interrupt you. I had so many questions, but you kind of answered all of them in that very comprehensive summary of the Islamic Republic and its achievements. Thank you very much for joining us today, and Assalamu alaikum. Okay, now I want to widen this out to your public calls, and let's go to the line straight away. We have Leva, who is in Manchester in the UK. We're asking tonight our callers for their views on Iran's Islamic Revolution. What does it mean to you? Go ahead, Leva, and make your point, please.
And first of all, I'm speaking as an English Jew. Iran today, to me, is a beacon of hope against a new world order. It is an independent state, self-sufficient, peaceful defiance against fake news, bullying, population sanctions. Also, I believe Iran has certain ancient futuristic technologies that stop the US invading it. Just another point. I was watching Fox News 2 days ago, and there was awful things they were saying, basically fake news. They were saying that Iran was bombing other countries, and they haven't bombed anyone for ages, forever.
Leva, I mean, I must admit, as a journalist myself, I find the media coverage of Iran to be horrendous. You say fake news there. A lot of the journalists that cover Iran or write about Iran have never actually been to Iran, or if they go there, they just go on superficial visits and they talk to certain people who speak English and are westernized. But you seem to have seen through this fake news.
It's many years of studying and finding out my own information. It's basically, unless you do what America says, they're just going to try and destroy you and bully you.
And I want to ask you one more question, Leva, because you say you're an English Jew. Now, obviously in the Western media, Iran is portrayed as a country that is anti-Semitic. Now, obviously that's not true. I don't believe it's true, but that is how it is portrayed in many circles. What do you say to that?
The problem is people who don't understand the history of the Jews and everything. I am a Jew, but I'm not a Zionist. When I have to explain that to people, because they just don't understand what it is. But most Jews do want peace. We're not all, it is the Israeli government, not the Jewish population.
Okay. Thank you very much, Leva, for calling in. Amazing call, and really happy that you expressed those sentiments. And yes, I mean, I'm not a spokesman for the Islamic Republic of Iran. I'm just a journalist. But I can tell you that Iran is not anti-Semitic. And of course, it discriminates against Zionists rather than Jews. And Zionism is a political movement that has nothing to do with Judaism whatsoever. Let's go to the African continent now and to Hussein. Hussein, what does Iran's Islamic Revolution mean to you? Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
It means a lot. It means a lot. First of all, Islam was dead as a dodo before the Islamic Revolution. And when the Islamic Revolution came into power, came into existence, rather emerged, it gave the true image of Islam, not the Islam that we know from the takfiris, head chopping, okay, discrimination, ethnic hatred, and what we see from the media. So the Zionists, I won't say the Western world as a whole, it is the Zionist plot who plotted all these things to create a chaos in the world, just to shadow the true image of Islam, which is portrayed by Islamic Republic of Iran. And may God, inshallah, hopefully make them success. And I wish all the Muslim Ummah, the true Muslim Ummah, to be in the forefront in confronting the Zionist plots and for the betterment of the whole world.
Yeah, Hussein, I think that unfortunately, living in the West, we know how the Western media portrays Islam. And when they talk about an Islamic state, everyone has in their minds images of the Taliban or of ISIL or Al-Shabaab in Somalia, the head choppers and the liver eaters, the intolerance, the sectarianism, etc. But people don't think about the Islamic Republic of Iran, which I've experienced has a very inclusive attitude towards other Islamic sects. I'm a Sunni Muslim myself. I never felt any discrimination whatsoever, having worked for Press TV all these years. And I know Sunni Muslims in Iran as well. So, you know, Iran has a very inclusive, non-sectarian attitude towards its Islamic propagation. And that is something I think that needs to be emphasized, because there are other countries like Saudi Arabia who have a very sectarian Islamic outlook. Thank you very much, Hussein in Kenya. Let's go to Camelia now, my colleague Camelia Shambayati, who has been monitoring the Facebook page, I believe. Camelia, have people been leaving any comments on there?
We are indeed live streaming on Facebook, and a lot of the comments are praising how inspirational the Islamic Revolution was. Abid Hussein says it means to overthrow tyrannical governments and replace it with Allah's government. Mustafa says if Iran didn't have a revolution, the Middle East would be totally dominated by the Zionist regime. Nadrif says Palestine would have been wiped out without Iran's help. Farman Khan seems to be against the revolution and said in the Shah's period Iran was a richer country, but you have to ask at what expense. And Muntazir Khan says congratulations to the people of Iran on the anniversary of a great revolution that continues to inspire millions and coming generations, and Iran is a nation that stood against all kinds of oppression. John expresses more praise and says long live the great Iran, God bless Iran, and death to the ugly enemies of the people of Iran.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that most people seem to be expressing positive sentiments about the Islamic Revolution. Just picking up on the one negative sentiment, the country was better off in the Shah's period. Well, you know, that might be the view of some, you know, Iranians in exile in places like Los Angeles and London. But it certainly is not the view of the majority of the Iranian people. I've been to Iran several times, and I can tell you that even though that kind of sentiment tends to dominate the Western media, if you actually bother to go to Iran and talk to ordinary Iranians, it's very much a minority sentiment, if that. Anyway, let's move on back to your public calls tonight. We are talking about Iran's Islamic Revolution, which happened in 1979 and shook the world. The Islamic Revolution in Iran was, as I say, an Islamic revolution which was inclusive. It was non-sectarian. Of course, Iran is a Shia country, but it does not discriminate against other Islamic sects. It was an anti-imperialist revolution. It was a revolution which took into account the views of the great Iranian public. It was also a revolution which shook off the shackles of Western and Zionist domination. And it is still a revolution which resonates and inspires people throughout the world. Let's go back to public calls now. We have Don in South Africa. Don, thanks a lot for calling in today. What would you like to say about Iran's Islamic Revolution?
Yeah, this is Don speaking from South Africa.
Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, you're welcome. Islamic Revolution, if I may say about Islamic Revolution, it went due to the Islamic ideology and the ideology of the Iranian leaders. Because if the Iranian leaders could have the idea of opposing the Western world, in a sense that they want to use Islamic ideology into politics, which is not right, because the world is supposed to be one. The world is supposed to be living without religious sentiments or religious dispute. Iranian is using Islamic ideology, which is Islamic religion.
But Don, if the Iranian people want to live according to Islam, which is part of their culture, history, and religion, what is wrong with that? You live in a secular country, South Africa. I'm not trying to impose my way of life on yours. But if someone tries to impose secularism on Iran, then that is imposing their way of life on the Iranian people who have chosen to live by Islam.
Yes, nothing is supposed to be wrong. If Iran has to be living in their own way of life, nothing is wrong with that. But at the end of the day, they wouldn't live their own way and oppose other people's way. Because I could remember Iran killed and massacred the other religious people which part of the Iranians went to India, they displaced all over the world due to they are forcing their religion into people.
Okay.
When you go to Iran, you don't see other religion. They are being oppressed. They are being killed. They are being done so many things. But Iranians are going to other countries where they are.
Okay, Don, I've let you have. I'll let you have. You're shouting now. I've let you have your say. Don't accuse me of not letting you speak, but I will respond. You say that Iranians are displaced all around the world. The fact is that some people did leave in '79, but obviously a lot of them were the privileged people that were pro-Shah, and they chose to leave. I'm not an Iranian historian, so I won't go into massive details, but if you go to Iran, Christians live freely. They have members of parliament, so do Jews. All this rubbish that you see in the Western media about Iran discriminating against minorities and stuff like that, it's all part of war propaganda. They've been trying to take down Iran for 40 years now, or nearly 40 years. And not only by military threats, but also by propaganda so that they can, lay the ground for their interventions. And I think, quite frankly, you're buying into a lot of that propaganda. You should learn to think for yourself. Watch Press TV more. You want to come back in, Don, very quickly?
They want to wipe out. They want to wipe other people out.
Who are they trying to wipe out? Who are they trying to wipe out? Be specific.
And the revolution was based on religion and politics. Religion is not politics. Religion is religion.
In Iran it is.
Religion is not politics. The revolution was based on religious politics.
Okay.
And if they have to oppose other people, why should they go to their countries? If they have to kill their own brothers for being in other religion, why
all
should
right.
they go to other countries?
Don. Right, you made your point.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I've let you speak. And obviously you're not a fan of the Islamic Revolution. I'm not pretending that everyone in the world is or should be. All I can say is, from my experience, Iran does not discriminate against minorities. They don't go around killing people willy-nilly. That's all Western propaganda. And it's not trying to impose its way of life on yours in South Africa. So just leave it be. Let's go back to Camelia Shambayati, who I believe has been monitoring what people have been saying about the Islamic Revolution on Twitter and Facebook. Is that right, Camelia?
That's right, Roshan. Just have a look at Twitter now. Mohammed says, it means the Islamic awakening after decades of persecution. It iterates in totality that only legislation based on the Holy Quran can holistically address the world's plight.
Yeah, as I said before, all I would say to that, Camelia, is that I believe that Iran's Islamic model is a very tolerant, inclusive Islamic model, something to be emulated, unlike other Islamic models that we see, so-called Islamic models around the world, embodied by states like Saudi Arabia, which are very discriminatory, intolerant, and frankly, I don't think they should serve as a model for the Islamic world. What else have you got, Camelia?
In another tweet, a person says, don't buy the hype. Iran's been on notice since the Iranian Revolution, alluding there to Trump's statements on Twitter. He says Iran is untouchable unless Zios and the US want to sacrifice the dollars and Tel Aviv.
Well, look, I believe that Iran's leaders are not complacent about the threats that they face, and they've been building up their military defenses, they've been building up their allies in the region, they've been building up buffers to prevent Iran being attacked like it was in the 1980s. So, yes, I think Iran is defensively very capable. What else, Camelia, do you have?
We'll just have a look at one more tweet, and Sahar Kuriman says, we should always remember that the US sponsored Saddam's attempt to annihilate Iran in response to the Iranian Revolution.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about that a bit more in part two, but I think that what happened in the 1980s when Iran was attacked by Iraq really does define the Iranian mindset in a way. They know not to trust some of their neighbors and certainly international nations like the West, because they know ultimately their agenda is the destruction of the Islamic Republic and regime change. Now, we have to go into a short news break, but don't go away, please, because we'll be back in a few minutes taking more of your calls on tonight's question: what does Iran's Islamic Revolution mean to you? Just a reminder, you can call me on +44 208 601 4555 to share your views. You can join the conversation on Twitter at @thebigconvo_PTV. And you can watch the show live on Press TV's Facebook page, and we'll read out the best comments that you leave on there. See you again in a few minutes. Welcome back to the big conversation. Tonight we have one main question. What does Iran's Islamic Revolution mean to you? Give me a call, please, on +44 208 601 4555 to share your views. You can join the conversation on Twitter at @thebigconvo_PTV, and you can watch the show live on Press TV's Facebook page, and we'll read out the best comments and talking points that you leave on there. Now, I understand that there are quite a few of you watching live on Facebook. Instead of just leaving your comments on there, pick up the phone, give me a call, and we will call you back, and then we'll get you on air. So please do that. Now, as Iran celebrates the 30th or the 38th anniversary of its revolution, its biggest enemy, the United States of America, has been making its usual threatening noises and imposing new sanctions. But this week, Iran's leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, gave his thoughts on the new US President Donald Trump, as well as his predecessor, Barack Obama.
We are thankful to this newcomer, President Donald Trump. We are thankful because he has comforted us and shown the true face of America. He has proven what we have been saying for more than 30 years since the Islamic Revolution in Iran. We would always speak about the political, economic, moral, and social corruption in the US administration. This man revealed it during the election campaign, and since then, his actions now have demonstrated the reality of America and the meaning of American human rights. Trump says we should appreciate former US President Barack Obama. No, we did not appreciate him at all. Why should we? For the sanctions, for creating Daesh, for setting the region on fire. They set Syria and Iraq on fire. Why should we thank him? For supporting their sedition in the 2009 elections in our country?
Well, I'm glad to see that Ayatollah Khamenei is not complacent about the threat from America, as I knew he wouldn't be. Iran's or the US leaders ever since Jimmy Carter. We have Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, George Bush Sr., George Bush Jr., Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and now Donald Trump. Since the Islamic nation of Iran, Islamic Republic, came into being. And without exception, all of them have been hostile to the Islamic Republic. You might get the Democrats' rhetoric being a bit softer, but then you have to look at their actions as well. And the Republicans, well, we all know what they're all about, and Donald Trump just exemplifies their attitude towards the Islamic Republic. Anyway, let's go to your public calls. I'm hoping to get as many calls in as possible during this second half of the show. Zachary is in Aberdeen. Zachary, nice to hear from you again. What does Iran's Islamic Revolution mean to you?
Good evening, sir. And I salute all the martyrs of the Islamic Republic of Iran, all the martyrs of the Syria and the Yemen and the Bahrain. And I want to state to the world community, as an ex-Marine officer who was through the revolution and through 8 years war, my experience, no, I'm 68 years old. The Islamic Revolution of Iran is continuation of the revolution by the Messiah and Moses and the revolution by Muhammad Rasulullah. And this is divine revolution for humanity. It is not only for Muslim in Iran. It is for the American that now they want divine revolution. It is for the European nations. They want divine revolution. They want Islamic revolution. They want justice. They want peace. They want love. The mankind abusing the law and the knowledge for destruction of the mankind. This Mr. Trump is the representative of the Satan. And the others like Blair and those, they created war against the mankind in last 100 years. Now, the hope for the mankind is Islamic revolution.
Zachary, you still there?
divine revolution for all mankind. It's not only for Iran.
Zachary, can I ask you a question? Because you mentioned that you lived through the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s. I know that is a time, having visited Iran myself during Sacred Defense Week, I know that that is a period which has made a mark on the Iranian mindset. What was it like living through that difficult period?
I want to tell you, when the war started, I was near to my home in Abadan, and I saw the Iraqi plane passing from my head and saw the pilot. I thought it's Iranian jet. But after a few minutes, it was war. And I've seen the whole of the war until Khorramshahr was fall down. And I was in that area, in the marine site.
Yeah.
And it was God has helped Iranians a lot. Otherwise, sorry, the Iraqis, which was the whole nations, I mean not nations, governments from the Russia, USSR, America, Britain, France, everybody there helping Iraqis. They could destroy Iran totally, many times, but it was the divine, it was God, it was Allah.
Thank you.
Allah wants this revolution to remain as a hope for the American people that know they need a divine revolution.
Okay,
the Europeans, they need a divine revolution.
Zachary, sorry for cutting you off because I know what you're saying is very important. I have actually visited your hometown of Abadan before, very close to the Iraqi border. And I know the population of that town went down to virtually zero, didn't it, during the Iran-Iraq war. And obviously it has built up again since peace has prevailed. But we all must remember that the West and certain Arab regimes literally tried to destroy Islamic Iran at birth throughout the 1980s because they couldn't stand a free, independent, Islamic sovereign state. Let's go to the United Kingdom now, to Nasser, who is in London. Nasser, thanks a lot for your call. What would you like to say about Iran's Islamic revolution?
Yes, good evening. Good evening, dear sir, and good evening to all the listeners. Let me first start, since the revolution started, the Islamic revolution started, it was very hard for the West, and especially for the Zionists. Now with the, I think they tried every trick to destroy the Islamic revolution of Iran. Of course, like you said, with the help of those puppets. But, they couldn't succeed. Now, with the God help, they managed to stand on their feet and they can't face any threat.
Yeah.
Now, when you talk about the Americans, I mean, Obama, George Bush, whatever, they're always against the Islamic State of Iran. And I hope this new president will change the view of and the mind of the Americans, and we will work for the peace.
Do you think he will? I'm surprised you say that, Nasser. I mean, haven't you been watching the news and Donald Trump's very hostile rhetoric towards Iran?
Well, to be honest, there is no such president of America who's going to be towards, who's going to be in favor of Muslim or Islamic State. Of course, he's not a person to trust, but God is in our side, actually, and I hope they will change their mind.
Yes. And how do you see the future of the Islamic revolution in Iran?
It's to be honest, as long as now is getting. I've been watching the Iranian, the Iranian Islamic State for many years. I mean, I remember when they had a war with Iraq.
Yeah.
And now when you look at Iran, I'm very happy actually. When you look economic, it's very great. The security in Iran is great. In defense, they are great as well. So, and the progression, inshallah, one day they will be on the top and nobody can sort of attack them.
Okay,
or...
thanks a lot, Nasser. And I think you made a very good point there at the end. Iran is a stable, peaceful country. Look at its neighbors. Look at the chaos that is going around the Middle East at the moment. When people look at Iran, it really is an island of stability. And I think even those people who might be against Iran, but might still have good hearts or a semblance of goodness in their hearts, they can see that, do they really want that? Even if they want a, regime change, they really want Iran to go down the same path as Syria, Iraq, and other countries into chaos, turmoil, bloodshed, and destruction. I think if you're a decent human being, whatever your political viewpoint, you wouldn't want that to happen. Let's go to Denmark now and to Trolls. Trolls, what would you like to say about the Islamic Revolution in Iran?
Okay, I'm very, very happy that the Islamic Republic has demonstrated that the mainstream Danish media was wrong when they, in 1979, said that the Islamic Republic wouldn't survive. And it wouldn't survive because, said they, because they had no understanding of great state economic of a state. They only had the understanding of a street bazaar economics. And today I am convinced that in a few years one might be able to view Iran as a Switzerland of the Middle East.
So you think Iran has got a very rosy economic outlook? What do you base that on?
What do I base that on? I know that Iran has been able to produce medicine for treatment of a number of diseases. And Iran is also working on how to solve the drought issues, the pollution issues. And of course, it's necessary for Iran to have a military that it can defend itself.
Absolutely.
And produce this military capacity. So there is no doubt in my mind, and I'm looking forward to really enjoying Iran reaching the peak.
Okay, thanks a lot for that call, Trolls. And I will just reiterate those comments that often Iran is portrayed as being internationally isolated. It isn't. It trades with its neighbors. It penetrates deep into Central Asia. It trades with Russia, China, India, South American countries. It is far from internationally isolated, and the West isn't the entire world. Let's go back to your Facebook comments now. Camelia, you've been monitoring the page. What have people been saying?
Well, if you're too shy to call, do log into Facebook and leave your comments and I'll read them out. Or you can, if you're already on Facebook, then do call in to have your say as well. Semi says, the Islamic Revolution has given people all over the world hope against the rule of injustice. It has given courage to people to take a stand against tyrants. It has taught people, regardless of oppression, in regard to oppression from others, to be independent, stand with dignity and rely on one's own individual and national resources, and everything else is a bonus. May the revolution bring stability in the region, which is in complete turmoil at present. And lots of comments streaming in with similar praise and admiration for Iran's Islamic Revolution. Mansour has been commenting a lot, and he says, it means everything to me. It demonstrated the true essence of Islam, demonstrating independence, culture, and justice. It has given me confidence for myself in the future. He continues that if the revolution did not happen, the Arab world would have been wiped out like the Native Americans. And finally says that Iran has assisted Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, and Palestine in the face of outright hostility and unrelenting imperialism.
Yeah, nice to see so many comments from non-Muslims. And I'm so pleased to see that the Islamic Revolution in Iran hasn't just inspired Muslims around the globe, but has inspired non-Muslims as well in places like Africa, South America. It was one of the most famous events in the 20th century and deserves to be. And this notion of independence that people are coming out with time and time again. I repeat, Iran is an independent country. It derives its power from itself, from self-sufficiency. It is not dependent, like Saudi Arabia and Israel, on America or Qatar on America for its security, for its economy, etc., etc. It is an independently self-sufficient and self-determining country. Let's go back to your public calls now. Enough from me. Bani is in Geneva. Bani's a regular caller. Nice to hear you again, Bani, over there in Switzerland.
Great work you do. Thank you so much. There is only one point I'd like to specify because there are so many things to say about this revolution. First of all, it was a popular revolution, people's revolution. They haven't been exported from Elysee or Washington. It was purely the people. Now, why successful? Simply because the rulers who are working as a governor or government, member of the parliament, all of the members who are ruling the country until the soldiers, they follow the rule of family of prophet from Hazrat Ali until the end. That means they are fair. There is a pilot, Iranian pilot during the war. He was flying to Iraq. He saw on the bridge there are innocent people. He didn't shoot these people when he came. You know, people, they respect the law according to this revolution, and this law is a divine, is a holy law. They haven't brought it from anywhere, as I said, and that's why it's successful, and Holy God will help them like they did help them for 36 years. The 9 years war that we had with this imposed war of Mr. Saddam Hussein and his friends, West and US, why one of those countries who they talk about justice and human rights, they didn't come out and say, stop, this is not right what you do. You know, myself, I had the pleasure to be next to 25 soldiers who they were contaminated with chemical weapons. Wow. In Switzerland, in Lausanne, next to United Nations. Not even one...
Bunny, are you Iranian yourself? You called him many times, but I never asked you that question. Are you Iranian?
Yes, of course I'm Iranian, and I have only one passport. I don't have double or triple, whatever. I have only one passport, and I'm grateful to be Iranian, and I've been foreigner since 9 years old. I was in Devon when I started to live outside. Okay. I'm a foreigner anyway. This is the reason the Iran revolution will continue to be successful, because they follow the rule of Divan. And the rule of Divan, they learn it from the family of the Prophet.
Thank you very much, Bani, for calling in again from Switzerland, from Geneva. And I think it is a point that's worth making is that the Iranian Revolution is looking really good, 30 years on, because we've just had a series of uprisings in the Arab world, and not many of them have succeeded in really changing regimes and instilling something better, and some of them have led to wars and destruction. Perhaps Tunisia might be the only exception, and even that's debatable. But the Iranian Revolution really did, kind of brush out one corrupt system and ushered in a better system. And that system has represented many more Iranians than the old system did, and it's still going strong 38 years later. Let's go to the African continent again, to Nigeria. Bashir Nawab is online. Bashir, thank you very much for calling in. What would you like to say?
What I would like to say is this. Islamic revolution in Iran is a practical demonstration of the teaching of Islam to the world. Had it been that there is no Islamic revolution, people will not believe, the Muslims will not believe that it is unpracticable, that you cannot use Islam to run a government. And it is in Iran, this revolution that has brought the limelight of the youth to know about Islam the more, and the slogan of Imam Khomeini and to the Muslim world that time is neither Shia nor Sunni, but Islam. No Shia, no Sunni, but Islam. It was this that enlivened the spirit of the revolution. So we pray Almighty Allah to continue guiding the revolution and bring about Islamic system of government in different parts of the world. Thank you very much.
Okay. On that note, thank you very much, Bashir. I won't add anything to what you've just said because you encapsulated everything perfectly. Let's go back to Camellia now. People are still watching us on Facebook, hopefully, and leaving their comments. Camellia, can we perhaps look at a few slides on the video wall about what people have been saying?
Sure, and thank you very much to our Facebook viewers for leaving your comments. Abdul says, the Islamic Revolution was essential for Muslims to fight Zionists.
Yes, I'm glad that maybe we haven't spoken enough about Palestine today, because that is something that attracted me especially to the Islamic Revolution. When everyone was abandoning Palestine, Iran spoke up for it. They hold the annual Al-Quds Day March. They support resistance groups within Palestine itself, but also within Lebanon, who have fought the Israelis. So it's not just rhetoric on the part of the Iranians. There are many other regimes in the Middle East that might send a little bit of charity to the Palestinians, might say some nice words, but they don't put their money where their mouth is when it comes to practical action. And Iran has been markedly different. And I know in Palestine itself, in Gaza, in the West Bank and elsewhere, the Palestinian people are extremely appreciative and respectful of Iranian support for them. What else have you got, Camellia?
Well, let's look at another comment from Mansour, who's been very active on the page tonight. Thank you for your contribution. He says, if it were not for the Islamic Revolution, Iran would have been a stereotypical Middle Eastern country, a filthy rich elite ruling over the illiterate masses.
Well, I think that was the case under the Shah, wasn't it? You had corruption, you had fantastically rich people, and very, very poor people, a massive gap between the rich and the poor. That's why all those demonstrations happened against the Shah, why all those national strikes took place, because people were fed up with it, and eventually they kicked him out. What else have you got, Camellia?
And finally, let's look at this comment, which I have to say is probably the best comment of the night. Hassan says, Iran's Islamic Revolution was a revolution for the whole Islamic world and an Islamic awakening. It showed us how to be successful and firm in the face of tyranny, and when the odds are against you. The true lessons of Imam Hussein's success was implemented by the Islamic Republic.
Yes, I think that, I mean, how brave were those people? Because they knew ultimately, as the point's been made several times in the show already, that all the powers on the side of the Shah, all his international allies, all his the military hardware, SAVAK, his Israeli-created secret police, yet they still went out in the streets. Hundreds or thousands were killed, yet they still went out, following the example of Imam Hussein, as has been said on that Facebook post. Okay, that is all the time we have today. Thank you for calling into the show and talking about the Islamic Revolution, very important anniversary, and thanks for sending us your comments on Facebook and Twitter. As usual, some great calls and talking points tonight, and please do continue the conversation on our Facebook page. Next week, we'll be commemorating the anniversary of Bahrain's revolution in 2011, so please do tune in for that. Bye-bye.